On the news, first batch of A29 Super Tucano jets arrived Nigeria. Federal government says no room for secessionist agitators in Nigeria. Nigeria jails pirates over ship hijacking. Glad to have you join us on News Now. I am Folashade Ogrinde. In recent months, Nigeria suffered significant losses to plane mishaps in the course of its onslaught against insurgents in various parts of the country. In 2018, former U.S. President Donald Trump, after a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari, confirmed the sales of Super Tucano fighter planes to Nigeria. About 3 years later, the first batch of the A29 Super Tucano aircraft has arrived in Nigeria. In an exclusive interview with TV360 Nigeria, Sadiq Garba Shehu, a former deputy head of security at the African Union, explains what the Tucano aircraft, apart from others, and its significance to Nigeria's fight against insurgency.
The Tucano is one of the few aircraft in the world that is right from design. It was made for counterinsurgency and irregular warfare. We never had an aircraft that is designed for counterinsurgency or irregular warfare until now, the arrival of this Super Tucano. Tucano has an endurance of 6 hours, 30 minutes. It's a great improvement. None of the aircraft we have has the range, that is the distance it can cover. The Tucano can cover 1,900 kilometers. That means from any point in this Nigeria where you decide to base the Tucano, it can reach another end of Nigeria within a short time and stay afloat with 6.5 hours. Even if it moves from Kayenji, it means by the time it arrives Maiduguri, you can have about 3 hours of action time before he needs fuel. We never had that before.
Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo, has issued a stern warning to separatist groups, yet that the country's security authorities would not tolerate any form of violence in the guise of agitations and secessionist threats. Our correspondent to this report tells us more. In continuation of his engagement with retired senior military officers across the country, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo, is visiting the southeast, following the rearrest of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, and the arrest of Yoruba Nation agitator Sunday Adeyemo. Irabo says anyone seeking to address a grievance should do so through the courts.
We have a constitution, and the constitution enables us to be able to ventilate all of our grievances that we have. So anyone going outside the provisions of the constitution, of course, we won't, as a military and of course security agencies, allow that.
While insisting that the military is not against peaceful agitations, General Irabo says security operatives will only go after violent secessionist agitators.
We will resist any attempt of anyone wanting to use the instrument of violence against the state. That certainly will not allow. But then there are provisions. Anyone who believes that he has certain desires within the confines of the arrangement as envisioned by the Constitution to ventilate such views.
A former Chief of Army Staff, Azubike Hijirika, also stressed that businesses and free movement can only thrive where there is peace.
The gathering today is unique in the sense that it is bringing the veterans and those currently serving together towards finding lasting solution to the spate of insecurity all over the country.
In recent months, calls for self-determination have gotten more vocal from sections of the nation's geopolitical divide, but the government has insisted that acts of secession will not be tolerated. Folashade Ogrinde, TV360 News. The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja on Friday has granted the application of the 12 detained aides of Sunday Adeyemo, also known as Sunday Igboho. Justice Obiora Egwatu gave the order while ruling on the fundamental rights enforcement suit filed by the activists challenging their detention. In an expert application argued by the plaintiff counsel, the court was informed that the 12 associates of Igboho were arrested during DSS raid on his house in Ibadan on July 2 and have been kept without access to their lawyers and family members. Speaking to journalists after the court proceedings, the plaintiff counsel expressed joy over the judge's verdict.
The court found merit in our application, and the court has compelled the DSS to produce the applicant to the court in the next adjourned date. This is very important because, you see, we must not encourage people who are given powers to work on behalf of the state to abuse the power. The applicants were arrested in a Gestapo manner, and they've been kept incommunicado for almost 20 days. As a matter of fact, we've written to the DSS on several occasions. We've visited their facility, but they've denied the applicants the opportunity to meet with their lawyers. They've denied the applicants the opportunity to meet with their family. But today we are glad that the court has found merit in this application. So we can only thank God and thank the court for its industry and for understanding that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man.
Now, speaking more on the story, we can see here that on Saturday, July 24, a federal high court sitting in Lagos sentenced 10 pirates to 12 years imprisonment, each for hijacking a Chinese fishing vessel, FV Hao Lu Veng 2, in May 2022. Justice Ayokunle Fachi, who said their actions affect the well-being of all Nigerians, also ordered each pirate to pay a fine of 1 million naira each. Prosecuting counsel for the federal government, Labaron Magaji, noted that they committed the crime in international waters off the coast of Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire's capital, in May 2020.
The verdict was handed, and each of them were convicted as charged. And we had a 4-count charge. The court found them guilty of all the counts and convicted them accordingly. Each of them is sentenced to 12 years imprisonment on each of the counts. Cumulatively, they have a maximum of 48 years to spend. But the good news for them is that those years is going to run concurrently, and is to commence from July last year. And it will be recalled that during the attack, they've recovered some money which was stolen from the victims of the pirate attack, and those monies were asked to be forfeited to the federal government in view of the fact that the victims have long returned back to their respective countries.
This is the court of first instance. As a matter of fact, we are taking the judgment immediately. We want to study it, and then we are definitely climbing upstairs. We are going to challenge the judgment, and of course there are some areas that we are not comfortable with personally on our part, because the issue we advocated before the judge, or canvassed before the judge, to my mind, our client ought not to be guilty.
On Saturday, July 24th, Lagosians will be deciding who their leaders at the local government level will be for the next 4 years. As residents go out to cast their votes for the preferred candidates, the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission, LASIEC, has assured that the conduct will be free, fair and credible. At a pre-election press conference in Lagos, the chairman of LASIEC, Ayotunde Phillips, reiterated some of the guidelines for the polls.
The voting process starts at 8 a.m. and ends at 3 p.m. tomorrow, while those on the queue as at 3 p.m. shall be attended to. Anybody whoever gets to the queue after 3 p.m. will not be allowed to vote. Election will be conducted with the use of the smart card readers, and voters should present themselves at their polling units with their PVC, their permanent voters card, or their TVC, temporary voters card, if they don't have a PVC. The electorate and Lagosians are being assured that there will be adequate security beyond the exercise. The Commission is leaving no stone unturned to ensure a successful, free, fair and credible election that is devoid of violence, intimidation and harassment.
Now, joining me now to discuss this further on News Now is Public Affairs Analyst Mr. Victor Okai. Thank you very much for joining us on News Now. Now, how important is our local government elections in Nigeria, especially for the fact that most Nigerians focus more on the presidential and Guba elections? Now, how important do you think local government elections are for our democracy?
Ordinarily, the local government election should be the most important election, and I'll tell you why. That's simply because that's the closest to the man on the street. That is the grassroots government, the one that affects and touches the average citizen on a day-to-day basis. The reason for setting up the local government systems by the Olusegun Obasanjo administration at the time that he set it up was to get the finest of our civil servants, probably those just retiring, and instead of going home to just go and sit down, those technocrats were to go to the local communities and be of further service, to their people. Unfortunately, this has been abused. It has been hijacked by, it's now a compensation for miscreants and never-do-wells in many cases. And even at that, the state governments have hijacked the resources of local government areas such that, they ensure that they put their lackeys there so that when the money comes, whatever they give to them, they are happy to take. They feel it's like, oh, thank you for giving me this money, which is why they can't really do anything. They just wait for allocations, the money comes, and then they go and share. And so the common man does not feel the impact of the local government. But ordinarily, that should be the most important arm of the government.
Now, Mr. Alkai, let's talk about insecurity. Now, we all know that most elections in Nigeria, more often than not, marred by insecurity. Now, how do you think this issue can be addressed? Recall that the Lagos State government has declared a curfew, I think, between 6 a.m. and 3 p.m. Now, for each election, we see that these occurs most of the time. How do you think the government can, address the issue of insecurity?
Well, the answer is really, really simple. Equity and justice. As simple as it sounds, it's not more than that. The reason you have insecurity is because, look at the Lagos State government elections, for instance. APC till now still have many aggrieved members, and that's intra-party. Apart from that, you have aggrieved members of other parties who have been left out in the cold, who should be participating in this election. And when you find situations like that, where election results, I'm not necessarily saying Lagos, this happens across the country, where it's like election results have been predetermined, and they are conducted by the state or state electoral commissions, we are bound to have grievances. And so there's reason for concern. And so this is the reason you get insecurities, especially at the local government elections, as you have at other levels as well. But where there's a sense of justice, where there's a sense of equity, where there's a fair and level playing ground for all comers who want to participate, and the results are transparent, I do not see any reason for any injustice. Because if anything, those who voted will speak. It will be so clear and overwhelmingly so who the winners are, and where the people's hearts are.
Well, Mr. Victor Okai, I certainly hope that, the issue of insecurity will be a thing of the past for most elections in Nigeria. But thank you very much for your time on News Now. Moving on now, despite its vast agricultural resources, Nigeria heavily depends on the oil industry for its budgetary revenue. This is because many people do not consider agriculture majorly because of the hard labor involved. However, an agro-entrepreneur has taken the initiative to make farming easy with as little as a simple click on the phone. Our correspondent Abisola Adebayo has the details in this report.
Farming remains a very lucrative business, but many young people perceive it as a dirty job because of the process involved. But with the advancement in technology, people can now farm from the comfort of their homes on their phones. This is one of the innovations brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Computer science graduate turned farmer Rebecca Amao, together with her team, have developed an application that allows people virtually invest in agriculture and get their profits without hassles.
During the COVID-19, it became a challenge for people to earn their living, and also there was an increase in the transmission of the disease. So we were inspired to ensure that consumers at home are empowered.
With the Farm from Your Phone application, Anyone can contribute to the food production process by investing on a crop before cultivation, monitor its growth process, and get their profit when it's harvested.
When people invest in these crops, what we do is that we take the monies, we look for these farmers that need help, we inject it into their farm, increase their productivity. When these products are sold in the market after harvest, we take some part of the profit, give back to the consumers, put in the system, and continue to run the program.
Since its launch, the app now has over 5,000 subscribers, from farmers to investors and even sellers in the market. Amo says the app keeps on empowering lots of Nigerians, irrespective of their status.
Farm from Your Phone program has created opportunities for both farmers, for consumers who are involved in other jobs, but they are earning without being fully being on the farm physically. We have a lot of testimonies from our sponsors who have sponsored the cultivation of crops and who have, in the long run, also be helped by helping other farmers.
Agriculture is a business of uncertainties, which means investments sometimes take a while to yield profit. Amao says pressure from investors for their returns is one of the challenges our team faces, aside shortage of funds.
Impatience of sponsors sometimes, and sponsors want huge returns on investment, and we know that for agriculture is a long-term investment. We have some crops that in a few months you get return, which we tell the investors. Funds will help us create more near farm processing centers for farm clusters.
Nigeria is still grappling with an increasing grain import bill, but with innovations like this, the country's agricultural sector may well be on its way towards attaining food self-sufficiency. Abisola Adebayo, TV360, Lagos.
We'll take a break here, but still to come, long-awaited Olympic Games finally declared open. All this and more after the break. Now let's take a recap of some of our top stories. The Nigerian Air Force has announced the arrival of A-29 Super Tucano fighter planes from the United States. The aircraft, which arrived Kano State at about 12:34 p.m. on Thursday, are expected to aid the fight against insurgency in the northeast and other parts of the country. We also told you that Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo, has issued a stern warning to separatist groups. He added that the country's security authorities will not tolerate any form of violence in the guise of agitations and secessionist threats. In case you missed any of our news bulletin, for more updates, do log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Google Plus at TV360 Nigeria. On Facebook, we are TV360 Online. Nigeria has recorded 184 more cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of confirmed cases in the country to 170,306. Again, Lagos topped the chart of infections with 124 positive samples, followed by Rivers with 27 cases. Also, 31 persons were discharged, while no death was recorded from the disease in the last 24 hours. The number of total recoveries in the country has since risen to 164,772, while the death toll remains 2,130. We'll take another break here and return with more stories and business. To stay with us. Welcome back. Well, up next is business news and stock market review with Abisola Adebayo. Over to you, Abisola.
Thank you very much, Folashade. Welcome to business news. The recent agreement by oil-producing countries to increase crude oil output by over 4 million barrels per day has increased Nigeria's chances of meeting some of its financial assumptions for the year 2022. But industry watchers have expressed cautious optimism over the impact this will have on Nigeria's frail economy. Our correspondent Folashade Ogunride tells us more in this next report.
For a country whose revenue base rests heavily on crude oil proceeds, the decision by OPEC to increase oil output by 2022 sounds like music to the ears. This means Nigeria will meet up with its oil output target of 1.88 million barrels per day.
There will be a crude oil benchmark price of $57 per barrel, a crude oil for 2022, a crude oil production of 1.88 million barrels per day, a Naira exchange rate of 410 Naira 15 kobo to $1.
With the crude oil price benchmark placed at $57 per barrel for the next financial year, Nigeria's depleting foreign reserve might equally be receiving the much-needed boost.
Our balance of trade has turned negative. So as long as you have a negative balance of trade, you are going to continue to see a depletion in your reserve. So hopefully, the increase in volume allocated to Nigeria will lead to a reversal of that balance of trade deficit. But assuming that sustains, then we will still continue to see pressure on our reserve. But a higher volume of production, assuming prices stay strong, of course, we saw prices recover today after some downward movement. If prices stay strong in the region of $70 to $75 per barrel, one should expect that all things being equal, that Nigeria's reserve will begin to appreciate, and the pressure we're currently witnessing on the exchange rate would at least to some extent moderate.
But not all experts share this optimism, as concerns over Nigeria's rising insecurity and lack of diversification threatens the possibility of improved revenue.
Most of the time, when we project we are going to sell 1.8 million per day, we are unable to achieve this because of insecurity, concerns around Niger Delta, global oil prices, etc., etc. So this economy needs to move away from oil dependence. So even if we achieve that, yes, in the short term, we are going to see results. But I'm even afraid that in the last 6 years, and before this administration, to be honest, a lot of government have had such similar projection. But have they been able to meet up? The answer is no.
The unprecedented effects of COVID-19 has placed a huge dent on the nation's revenue base, but government is hopeful that with the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Bill, an economic revival can be achieved. Folashade Ogunride, TV360 News.
We'll take a short break now and return with stock market review. The equities market maintained its positive vibes to the end of the week's trading, which is today, and the bull bellowed at the close of trading. The all-share index was up by 0.21%, closing at 38,667 basis points. Well, if you take a look at the activity chart right here, the market recorded a 34% improvement in turnover, and the deals transacted compared to yesterday was up by 4%. That is why the total volume of shares transacted was 230 million units, valued at over 2 billion naira, exchanging hands in 4,135 deals. Now to the top gainers of the day. The financial services and oil and gas sector had a good trading day today, as Universal Insurance PLC and Ohando led 30 gainers today, and they both recorded 38 kobo increase at the close of trading. On the flip side, however, UPL and Champion Breweries PLC from the consumer goods sector, they led our losers list, as they both lost 34 kobo at the close of trading. Well, the market seems to be in a comfortable place right now, and it's a good way to end the Eid-el-Kabir week. Let's hope the positive trend continues next week. On the global scene, that's the FTSE, the Dow Jones and the Nikkei. It's all in the positive. The FTSE closed higher on Friday and above the 7,000 level as the share sell-offs on Monday now seems like a distant memory. Unlike yesterday, the Dow Jones also rose modestly as Snap stock and Twitter leapt on earnings amid booming revenue growth. It seems investors on both sides of the Atlantic are looking to a great week ahead. Anyways, Japan stocks Nikkei also gained today as investors continues to buy stocks on dips over cautious earnings optimism ahead of the weekend that will mark the start of the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. That's all on Stock Market Review. Over to Fola Shadi for the rest of the news.
Well, thank you very much, Abisola, for that update. Moving on now to the foreign scene, Haiti's President Jovenel Moise has been laid to rest more than 2 weeks after he was assassinated in a late-night raid. Pallbearers in military attire carried late Moise's body in a closed wooden coffin draped with a Haitian flag and adorned with white flowers as his funeral got underway on Friday. Ahead of the funeral, there are tension in Haiti's north, where Moise was born, as demonstrators set up roadblocks and demanded accountability for the president's death. Police have since arrested more than 20 people, including 2 Haitian Americans and several former Colombian soldiers, but the precise motive for the killing remains unclear. Well, up next is entertainment reports.
Emil Garba's short film Last Tango in Abuja has landed 5 major nominations at the 5th edition of the Toronto International Nollywood Film Festival. The short film is nominated in the Best Short Drama Africa, Best Actor and Actress, Best Director and Best Producer categories. Starring Preach Bassi, Ruth Nkweti and produced by Ben Peva, the short film follows the story of former lovers Monique and Tayo, who met up for one last rendezvous as Monique prepares to tie the knot. It premiered to impressive reviews on YouTube in December 2020. Fans have gone wild on social media as Nigerian singer Adekunle Gold features his wife Simi in the central video of his new song Sina. Adekunle Kosoko, who goes by the stage name Adekunle Gold, announced his new video across his social media platforms on Thursday, and to fans' surprise and excitement, Simi played the love interest to Abu. The song Sina, which was released 2 weeks ago, features American singer Lucky Date and produced by Blaze Beats. According to AG Baby, as he is popularly called, the song Sina was inspired by the Bible story of King David and Bathsheba. That's all we have for you on the entertainment segment of News Now.
And it's a wrap on our news bulletin. Thank you for watching. I am Fola Shadi. Green Day. Bye for now.